It's Donald Trump's personal coup in Portland. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. On the line with us is Ken Klippenstein. He's the D.C. correspondent for The Nation magazine, thenation.com. His Twitter handle, Ken Klippenstein, Klippenstein. Ken has a piece out for the Nation titled Border Patrol Responsible for Portland Arrest. Ken, welcome to the program. Tell us about who are these people who are showing up here in Portland?
So this is a variety of federal agents. Some of them are what's called BORTAC. It stands for Border Patrol's Tactical Unit. This is their equivalent of the SWAT teams. It's sort of like kind of like special forces for Border Patrol. So those are some of the folks that have been conducting the arrests. And then also there are federal agents with the U.S. Marshal Service. So needless to say, this is a very high and sort of sophisticated level of federal law enforcement to be bringing against, what the mayor of Portland and many others in the state are saying is something that can be handled by local law enforcement.
Have they actually arrested anybody? I know that they've kidnapped a few people, but they let them go, after intimidating them. If there was an arrest, we would have a record, and you would presumably have the name of an arresting officer and the agency and all that kind of stuff. I have not seen any of that reported, and I live here.
That's what's so strange about it. The reporting suggests that they've brought people in, but not actually booked them, and so there were no records. In one case, an individual told reporters that, they asked if he would answer some questions, and he invoked his, right to an attorney. And then at that point, they just said, all right, you can go. And then he left, and there was no sort of documentation to indicate, first of all, that he was there or why he was there.
Which raises an interesting question. If they were here, let's say that there actually was a crisis in Portland, that you had, a bunch of anarchists or right-wingers or left-wingers or whatever. You had a bunch of people who were hell-bent for leather to, on damaging the city in some way and terrorizing the citizens. And the federal government, with the best of intentions, sends in some federal police. They would arrest people. They would post what they were arrested for. They would say their names. They would, if this was being done to try to, quote, restore order to Portland, there's a normal way that you do that. You identify the people who are behaving like criminals, and you jail them, and you charge them with crimes, and you do it all out in the open. And none of that is going on, which causes me to think that the agenda here is not to restore order to Portland. In fact, if anything, it's to inflame Portland, number one. And number two, it really, at the end of the day, has nothing to do with either order or Portland. I'm concerned, and Ken, walk me off this ledge here, or talk me off this ledge, excuse me, that we saw in Michigan where the governor of the state did not like the way that Detroit and Flint, and I believe Benton Harbor, were being run, majority black cities were being run by Democratic mayors and city councils. And so he just got rid of them and replaced them with these so-called emergency managers. They privatized Flint's water, blah, 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 blah. And it got litigated, and, they could do that. So what happens if, say, Brian Kemp decides to take out Keisha Lance Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta? What happens if Greg Abbott decides that he's going to take out the mayors of Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas? What happens if Ron DeSantis decides that it's time to shut down Miami, and so that basically all the blue cities in the country suddenly are under federal control, and then the election comes and that federal control really tightens down, and it gets really, really hard to show up and vote, for example? Or am I just way out of here in paranoid land?
No, I think that's exactly what the debate should be around right now. And
where could this go?
Right, exactly. The legal justification for this is unclear. The documents leaked to me from individuals within the Department of Homeland Security shows that it seems they're deriving at least some authority from the president's executive order about protecting monuments. In response to that, Department of Homeland Security created what's called they created a task force. It's called the Protect American Communities Task Force, or PACT for short. It doesn't creepy enough. And so in response to that, they're sending these federal agents to places where the authorities there are saying, we don't need this. We don't need this assistance. And folks that I talk to, current and former DHS officials, are saying that when you have people running around in unmarked vehicles not identifying themselves, as you said, that can inflame the situation because people, first of all, don't know what is going on. And in addition to that, when police are clearly marked, that can have a deterrent effect against the kinds of crime that the president alleges is the reason for this, property destruction and that kind of thing. So it's really unclear why it's happening. And documents shown to me from folks within DHS suggest that this is open-ended. There's no deadline. There's when they're given talking points about how to interface with the media and answer questions, and they are told to, when asked, what is the timeline for this, and also where are these people being deployed, they basically have to indicate we don't know, or not that we don't know, but that we're not going to tell you because you can't know. Because they say that that could harm the operational security of these missions.
Right. We also have this, ICE offering the Citizens Academy course. I first read about this in Newsweek, that they are training civilians in, quote, defensive tactics, firearms familiarization, and targeted arrests. That this is, quote, an extension of the community relations work ICE is already doing in the community. This is according to ICE spokesperson Nicole Alberico, speaking to Newsweek. And then I've got an ICE press release in my hand here at ice.gov saying that the St. Paul Office of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, graduated its first inaugural class of Citizens Academy students this fall. This was several months ago. This was 9 months ago. HSI's Citizens Academy is an important tool, they say. Overall, St. Paul's HSI workforce represents about 1% of the agency, but they've obtained twice as many indictments and convictions as the national average. Also included in the Academy program was narcotics enforcement investigation. And this group of volunteers, citizens, in Portland made 100 arrests for various drug-related offenses. I'm, again, reading this from an ICE press release. And during the final phase of the Citizens Academy, the class engaged in shoot-no-shoot scenarios in a shooting range as the students experienced split-second life-and-death decisions firsthand. Do we know if any of these civilians, first of all, are they recruiting from the Proud Boys and things like that, number one? And number two, do we know if any of these civilian groups that ICE has trained have shown up here in Portland? And we're getting close to a hard break here in about a minute and 10 seconds.
It's not clear because, again, we don't know beyond, the instances in which BORTAC and U.S. Marshals have engaged what's going on, and they're not being forthcoming about this. As the document that I was given shows they're told to cite operational security, the need to preserve, secrecy around these investigations or operations. But I think that's disingenuous because at the very least you could just give people a sense of here's why we're doing it, here's where we're doing it, and here's when we're doing it and for how long without, I think, imperiling, assuming that the point of all this is to prevent the kinds of property destruction that the president has inveighed against. But that's assuming that that's the point. I mean, this could also be something, as was described to me by DHS officials, this might be something like a photo op, because when you're arresting people and then just letting them go afterwards without booking them, that doesn't seem to have much operational significance in terms of, preventing or deterring crime. Wouldn't you want to, first of all, either question them or compel questioning? Or
no, but it has huge propaganda consequence.